It seems the public only want films that talk.
I should have thought the best thing about films is that you can't hear them. Be even better if you couldn't see them either.
Hi folks, Captain Rutlidge here, back, as you can tell, from watching Downton Abbey, A New Era. So, you're probably wondering my thoughts about Downton Abbey. If you haven't watched any of my other videos, you can check them out up there. The thing about Downton Abbey, for me, I spent the summer of 2019 watching the whole series in preparation for the upcoming movie, and it is an excellent TV series. Probably one of the best shows to ever air on Masterpiece. Although, in my opinion, I think that Upstairs Downstairs is probably deserves more prestige than Downton, simply because it came up with a lot of the beats of the whole servants and upper class formula, and without it, Downton Abbey probably wouldn't exist, but that's just my thought. As for the first Downton Abbey movie, that came out in 2019, I thought it was pretty good. The thing with the original Downton Abbey and this current one, I don't understand why they can't just be television movies instead of the theater, but I don't know. They probably saw how big of a cash cow the first movie was and thought, let's do it again. Anyhow. Now, for the second movie, it is also pretty good. In my opinion, it's probably a better all-around movie in a theatrical based than the first one. The first movie felt more like a Christmas special that they would have put on. However, this feels more fleshed out. It adds more depth to the world of Downton Abbey and its characters. And, yeah, it's very nice. So that's spoiler-free. Now get ready for some of the spoilers. So, the plot of this movie is that Tom Branson recently gets married to the young lady he met in the first movie. And after their wedding, the Dowager Countess tells about herself inheriting a villa in the French Riviera that was given to her by an old friend, and that she is now handing it down to her granddaughter, Tom's daughter, young Sybil, or Sibby, as they call her. And meanwhile, a representative of the British Line Film Company is approaching the Crawley family to do filming inside of Downton Abbey itself for a movie, and considering they need the funds to fix the roof, they agree to it. So while part of the Crawley family is away in the Riviera, Lady Mary and the rest of the staff are working with the film company, the main star, who's sort of a Clark Gable, Cary Grant type, and the uppity actress who suffers a bit from the Singing in the Rain syndrome. If you remember, the actress from that movie looked great on screen but had a terrible voice. She kind of suffers from the same deal. To the point where when they decide to make the movie they're shooting at the house a talkie film, they have to call in Lady Mary to dub for her. But the scenes with the filming at the Abbey is very fun to watch. Sort of gives an idea of the whole studio system back in the day. As opposed to Hollywood, here we're seeing more of the British film system. And I really enjoyed that bit. I thought it worked pretty well. Now for the villa subplot, we learned that Lord Grantham might not actually be his father's son, because the Dowager Countess was very friendly to the French Count who left the villa to the Dowager Countess. And once he did the math on the week they spent together, oh gee. But anyways, the scenes at the French Riviera are absolutely breathtaking, to say the least. I mean, the cinematography over the Mediterranean and a lot of the scenes at the villa and the town are absolutely joy to see. Especially when Carson accompanies Lord and Lady Grantham down to the Riviera and, yeah, acts as British as possible. But on the subject, all the actors in this are a joy. They still embody the characters they helped develop, especially Dame Maggie Smith in probably her best shining moments as the Dowager Countess. She's getting up there in years, but she's definitely not slowing down, to say the least. I mean, her scenes in Netflix's A Boy Called Christmas were excellent, and even here, she still hasn't lost her edge. And even if this turns out to be one of her final roles, it is an excellent role to go out on, to say the least. One thing that bothered me, though, is how Lady Mary's husband, Henry, did not show up in the film, saying that he was away at a motor rally in Istanbul. I thought it was kind of a shame, and I was worried they were going to pull something like with the last movie, where he comes in like the cavalry at the end. But part of me still wishes that he would have been able to show up in the movie itself. And then there are a few other subplots that work their way into the story, like how Andrew and Daisy are now married and living with Mr. Mason at his house. Also, Mr. Mosley's back. For those who don't know, Mr. Mosley is probably one of my favorite characters in the series. How everything goes wrong for him and still he keeps his chin held high. One thing I wish that they would have done in the first movie is go into more of his relationship with Miss Baxter, the Countess's lady maid, seeing how they struck up a good friendship in the series, and part of me was hoping that they'd become a couple. They start to hint at it about halfway through the movie with when Miss Baxter is in the Rivieras with Bates and Carson talking about her relationship with Mosley. Part of me wishes that at the beginning of this movie they would have set that up kind of a bit, like during Tom's wedding. But even so, their relationship does get an excellent payoff in the movie, in typical Mosley fashion. And unlike the series, things actually look up for Mr. Mosley in this movie. Everything's coming up Mosley. That should have been the name for this movie, Downton Abbey. Everything's coming up Mosley here. Another character payoff comes in the form of Barrow, the butler, who strikes up a friendship with the film actor Guy Dexter, who was working at Downton. Dexter takes a liking to Mosley, and I believe the feelings were reciprocated, and eventually Barrow gets a job working as an assistant / partner to Mr. Dexter. Probably one of the better ways that his character arc could have finished, and I think it works rather well. Another subplot in the movie involves Lady Mary striking up her friendship with the film director, who has some very close feelings for her, but she doesn't reciprocate due to her relationship with Henry, or Sir not appearing in his picture. Well, it was fine, I guess. But probably the biggest part of the story near the end of the film is the Dowager Countess on her deathbed. After the movie filming wraps up at the house, then we realize that the Dowager Countess is dying, and the whole Crawley family goes up to be with her in her last moments. And even on her deathbed, she does not disappoint with her one-liners. It's both a sad and sweet moment to close out the picture. I'm starting to think that they wanted to have this subplot in the first movie, but Julian Fellows couldn't figure out how to write it in more believably. But here, it is a pretty good payoff for her arc in the story, and connection to Lady Mary, soon to take over her role as the Dowager Countess, which would be awesome. I mean, imagine Lady Mary living in the 1960s with the Beatles, rock and roll, and Kennedy, and just looking at it in the same perspective as the Dowager Countess during the 1920s. I'd pay to see that. No. And then there's the soundtrack for the movie I'd like to talk about. It's excellent, to say the least. Part of me wants to download the soundtrack just so I can listen to some of the jazz music played during it. So I suppose that wraps it up. So, Downton Abbey, New Era. Should you see it? Well, if you're a fan of the original series and you've seen all the episodes and the movie before, yes, I think you should definitely see it to sort of wrap up your viewing experience of the world of Downton. If you have not yet watched Downton Abbey and you really want to watch this movie, you really do need to watch the series and the first movie just to get yourself geared into the whole world of Downton in order to enjoy it properly. But, yeah, those are my thoughts. If you don't like them, I've got others. It's very strange, doing 2 of these TiPB at the movies in a row in the same 6 months. But feel free to tune in another 6 months when we take a look at Cyber Chase the movie, The Quest for Gilbert Gottfried. Until next time, I'm Captain Rutlidge. Good day.